It's interesting.
Yes.
As a man, can I be a feminist researcher?
That's a question actually somebody asked me here in a workshop, and absolutely. Can men be the subjects of feminist study? Can men interview women? Can women interview men? Can I, as a white woman, interview a woman of color, interview a man? Yes, the issue again is strong objectivity. And realizing another interesting issue I think that feminist perspectives take up is the idea of positionality. That in one situation, you and I may, in fact, even though we're of a different gender, we share other things. We may share a social class together. We may share, an ethnicity together. So that in any one positionality never remains fixed, because if you go out that door and you go into a room filled with men, then your gender, becomes neutralized a little bit. But it may now be that your social class is the critical element. So we go in and out of positionalities, sometimes with the oppressor, sometimes with the oppressed. So that kind of insider answer. So there's something, if I were to interview you and you were to interview me, I would also look for the commonalities. Maybe we're sharing this love of music or something. I mean, the thing is, I don't have to be the same on every dimension of a position. There are things that I can share with you. And we know, George Simmel talks about the stranger phenomenon. Sometimes we will tell things to somebody who's very different from us because of that notion of, well, I'll never see you again. It doesn't matter. I may tell you my best kept secrets. So there's this notion of kind of, you're likely to tell things more to someone you don't know than someone you do know. But again, this kind of who's an insider, who's an outsider is flexible. And sometimes I, ironically, may share, I may think I'm an insider with you because we share X, Y, and Z, only to find out that I mentioned to you I'm a member of the Ku Klux Klan, and all of a sudden, whammo, the interview's gone. So I think this kind of notion to be aware, if you go in and think, well, she's a woman, she'll listen to me and I'll listen to her. Well, maybe she will and maybe she won't. Maybe you're a different age. Maybe age is important in that instance. So those things we think we may share, in fact, may not be enough in that given situation. So positionality, again, becomes an important edge.
Everything you've said makes perfect sense. Could one not almost argue that this is a recipe for good research?
I think it's interesting. Other disciplines and use different kinds of methods, and they'll talk about issues of reflexivity, but they may not label it reflexivity, and they'll use a lot of feminist principles from practice, but they will not give feminist practice the credit it deserves. And I think because I think partly is that the name again. I mean, there is some kind of, as one of my students said in one of the films we showed, that feminism has become the F word, and actually the idea that you're a pariah if you label yourself a feminist. And I think the kind of standoffishness to feminists who practice research in a way that is mindful and respectful of power, of difference, are things that are important in any research project that we do. And in fact, feminist principles can be integrated across different kinds of disciplines and practices and perspectives.
It's very interesting. One last question. I mean, you mentioned towards the beginning of our discussion that feminist research embraces all different kinds of methods.
Yes.
So if I came to you as a quantitative researcher, how would I be a feminist researcher?
Well, really, feminism is about the perspective, and perspective questions come from the perspective. So I might say, and I think feminists miss opportunities to be involved in quantitative work because, as Audre Lorde might say, they're using the master's tools. As a matter of fact, there are some feminist researchers who refuse to use any quantitative tools. But so, for example, if you came to me and said, I'm really interested in understanding the prevalence of violence against women globally. Now, I'd say, well, that's, number one, it's about women. It's about violence against women. And I'd say, well, if you want to know the prevalence of rates, this sounds like numbers. This sounds like you need to gather some quantitative information, okay? So you want to know the extent, and should say, I may want to look, is it more prevalent in certain groups of women than others? Here we get difference. So you might want to look at some national data on violence against women by class, by race, by ethnicity, and really plot where the differences are. Then you can ask another set of questions. Why is it higher in these countries than those countries? Okay, what is it about, Eastern European countries? What is it about, this segment of women? Why, but interesting enough, we realize that violence is prevalent not only in working class and lower class women, it's prevalent in middle and upper class. This problem runs through the class structure. I thought this was just about poor women who were disempowered. You mean rich white women get beat up on occasionally? Yes, they do. Wow, I didn't know that. So what it does, it's in the asking of a quantitative question, but its ultimate aim is to get at subjugated knowledge through quantitative exposure.
I guess that begs the question of what is violence and how does that change culturally, but maybe that's for another...
But that's, that will lead to another set of questions. That would say, does the violence in East Africa, do women interpret violence X way or Y way? Okay, maybe we need a mixed methods approach. Maybe we need to get in there and have some focus groups with a cross-class spectrum, and maybe upper-class women in this case don't believe that that's violence. Okay, does that not make it violence? So there's our definition as maybe even white Western women's definition of violence. We realize violence is a cross-cultural concept, right? So there, you're getting into then, how do we measure things? How do we conceptualize things? Where's the cultural bias now? Not just gender, but cultural bias, race bias, that's contained within the concept. Who's defining what? So we're getting into a whole other series of conundrums, and so on.
Sharlene, Nagy, Hesse-Biber, thank you very much. That was great. Thank you.